they've got a job, they're set up, their kids are going to school, so on and so forth, that the best thing you can do at this point isn't to deport them. It's actually to create a pathway to citizenship and legitimacy for them. And then furthermore, you mentioned social cohesion. I guess I'm curious what social cohesion you're referring to. I feel like there's a lot, all over, in all societies, there's some cohesion and some lack of cohesion between people, whether they're white, black, or immigrants or whatever. Like I see a ton of white on white lack of cohesion in the United States. So I guess I'm curious where this land exists that has so much social
White
cohesion.
on white lack of cohesion.
And yeah, I guess we can start off there.
So in order to respond to all of these things, let's start with social cohesion. I'm not a racialist. I've never been a racialist, and I'm never going to be a racialist. However, I am a cultural nationalist. I do believe that there has to be some type of cultural glue that holds a society together. In the United States, this was done for the better part of 200 years, utilizing the Constitution. But that is now failing with the mass number of people that we have here. It's become more of a divisive document than it has a document that has brought people together. So when you say there's plenty of white people who have conflict, I'm not disagreeing with that. I just want to expound on what I believe social cohesion means.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah.
Which means that there's some type of glue that holds society together culturally. It has nothing to do with their skin color, race, creed, or anything else. Many cultures have lived together and it's been fine. The Byzantine Empire is one such example. There's many such examples. That aside, recall that the very first thing that you said was, hey, guess what? Illegal immigration. What do you want to do? You want to make them all legal.
This well, no, I want to. So I said,
solve. Hang on, I'll yield it back. I promise. Okay, but this is always the solve for a progressive. A progressive always wants to solve this problem by burying their head in the sand and just making all of the illegal immigrants that are here legal. That's terrible policy. We've done it before, and it didn't do anything to curb illegal immigration. It's an immoral policy because they skip people's spots in line. It's also immoral because then preferential treatment is given to their family members when they're made legal by skipping their spot in line. This is terrible, terrifically horrific policy that should not be adhered to on the illegal immigration front.
Okay. So I guess to respond, I never said that was the only thing, right? Like I want to make sure that like this borders are strong and that people, but I'm just saying that once they've arrived, I don't see what the other suggestion is, just to keep them as illegals, I guess. And
you throw them out of the country, just like you would do with somebody who did any criminal activity. You would adhere to what the law says. This is a democratic nation. Our politicians have been voted into office democratically. The law is the rule of the land. The rule of the land says if you're here illegally, you need to go back home.
Okay. And what about if they've had kids and stuff and set up roots? You don't care about that?
Those are called anchor babies. And whilst you can say that anybody who is born in the United States who's had a baby, that their mother is allowed to stay and take care of the baby till the baby's 18, you can't give me a reason why the mom then needs to be naturalized or have citizenship past that point.
So you're saying that if a mother, I'm just trying to restate what you said. So you're saying that if a mother came here illegally, had that baby, you're saying you'd be okay with them to have that baby or stay here until 18, right?
I would not be okay with that. However, I would be willing to at least make the compromise with understanding that if the current policy is that babies who are born in the United States are United States citizens, and that is the policy of the land, that at the very least you would allow the mother to stay for the first 18 years of life, but there's no reason not to deport her after that point.
Okay, so my question is, like, do you think that after 18 years, if a mother has raised her child and has committed no crimes, has done nothing, that they haven't earned the right to stay still, even after 18
they would have
years?
To the right had they filed for citizenship, and 18 years is an awful long time to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, so what I'm saying is they should have a path to be able to do that.
There is a pathway for them to do that right now without ever coming across the border and having the anchor baby to begin with.
But if they're here, though, then there's no path?
Yeah, but they shouldn't be here to begin with. So if you had staunch border policy, if you were to mobilize the border guard, National Guard especially, in order to make sure that illegal immigrants were sent back to their origin nations like the law determines that they're supposed to be, we wouldn't have the issue of anchor babies to begin with. However, you might find that some slip through, and if they do and have a child here, current policy, unfortunately, is that they have United States citizenship. I would prefer that they did not, but that is current policy.
Okay. Yeah, I guess like, but could you see that there's like, so one thing you brought up is that whatever they've done hasn't been able to curb illegal immigration. You said something like that, right?
No. Democrats have gone out of their way to make sure that the border remains as open as possible. They've not prosecuted such elements as the border angels, people like this who aid and abet people crossing illegally. They've done everything possible to make sure that border security is as limited as it possibly can be, and we have a wide open border.
Sorry, but as far as I understand, border security isn't actually the issue here, right? It's mostly people that overstay their visas.
When we're talking about illegal immigration, that's true. So I guess one of the policies should be then that we don't issue visas without tracking people, right?
Okay, I don't think that happens anyways. Like, oh, you mean like tracking them? Like, where exactly are you gonna? But
Yeah.
they already do that. Like, when I come to the United States, they ask me where are you gonna stay, what's your address, what is the contact, da 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 da. But like, but that's
Primarily
that's
people-
still the number one way.
Yeah, primarily people who are here on overstayed visas, unlike immigrants who are coming from down south, aren't using stolen social security numbers and ripping off our taxpayer dollars to the tune of billions per year, getting all types of federal income taxes in exchange. Even though they're not, they shouldn't qualify for them to begin with. They've stolen somebody's identity.
What do you mean by
large?
Sorry, I'm just trying to understand. What do you mean by stolen social security?
Well,
like,
how do you think an illegal immigrant gets a job if it's not?
They mostly get jobs under the table.
If it's not under the table, how do you think they get a job?
My understanding was that the illegal immigrants work under the table.
No, illegal immigrants have jobs legally,
or they can work for like places where you have to put like as minimum amount of details as you need.
So if you were to guess, how would you guess if an illegal immigrant got a job and they were run through check system? How would you suspect they would be able to get that job legally?
I don't think that they can. I'd have to see an example of. I'd have to see like an example or.
Yes, illegals work at all types of different retail chains, factories, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, in Michigan, they've done several raids on large factories that have hired illegal immigrants. The factories are not penalized for doing this because guess what? The illegal immigrants are there under a stolen social security number.
So these are
very common practice.
Just to clarify, these are social security numbers of people that exist, or they're made up social.
They're mostly dead people. What coyotes, the service that a coyote renders is not just to bring you across the border. The service a coyote renders is to bring you across the border and also issue you with documents that you can then utilize inside the United States in order to get these various jobs. In this way, you can basically exist under the radar using somebody else's stolen identity. Those people are not always dead. Sometimes they're quite alive. They get credit cards in their names of other people. This is why identity theft is so horrific to people who it happens to, especially when it comes to illegal stealing the identities.
Okay. Okay. So the next thing I wanted to ask you was, do you ever see a situation where it would be legitimate for someone to flee their country?
You're talking about refugees.
Yeah, like
yes, I think that if you live inside of a war-torn nation, that the morally righteous thing for a mostly Christian nation to do would be to accept your women, children, and young men who are fleeing those who are fleeing those war-torn nations. However, well, there's reasons why you don't accept older men. One of the reasons is you don't want to be intaking spies and various espionage agents into your nation. And they do slip in, and they're generally a little more seasoned, right? So generally, they look at men who are between 18 to 21 years old as, kind of the general crop that would come in from war-torn nations. Now, if you come in from a war-torn nation, don't have a problem with that. However, I don't think that having convoys of immigrants coming up who are clearly so well fed that I can't believe they can even walk. Just come.
How do you know how well fed
right.
you've been?
Well, because I'm looking at the footage Okay, I'm
Okay.
looking at the footage, and these people don't seem like they're starving, right? What are they fleeing
What does
from?
starving look like? Like, just they're not skinny enough?
Starving looks like the kids in Kenya when you see the Arms of the Angel commercials.
So
That's
they
what
have to
starving
be, they
looks like.
literally have to be just bones before you're where you're able to accept that, you know, that they might not have the
Well, I don't
resources or
think that
not
they
have a
need to
stable
be
life.
American fat. No, I don't think that that's a necessary qualification to be American obese in order to qualify as not starving, man. Just so you
Okay.
know.
Okay.
So America has the opposite problem. Not only are they not starving, but they're not, they maybe should be starving a little bit more.
Okay.
Right?
So yeah, like I don't know. I think that like when you say progressives are lying, I think that you're kind of mischaracterizing the progressive position. So I think most progressives don't like, okay, there are obviously some fringe people who think that there should be no borders, but I think that like most people understand that borders need to exist in order to, you know, because nation to nation there's differences of all kinds,
Sure.
and you can't just, you know, I'm not gonna fucking argue for open borders, but
But
what
you
I'm
are going
gonna
to make an excuse for why we shouldn't deport people
yes,
who come here illegally.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's what I mean by the lie. So what it
but they're
is
different.
that
You have to see the distinction between
okay,
these
it's a
things.
distinction to me without merit. What it looks
Really?
like to me is it looks like a classic bait and switch. I am actually against illegal immigration. I'm so against it. Let's give all illegal immigrants citizenship. That's how against it I am.
Wait,
right?
I'm no, but they're two different things. One is I'm against it, so I want to be able to prevent it, right? And then the
By
other part,
giving
there's two
the
different
current
questions.
crop, by giving the current crop, how do you think that you think it doesn't work as an incentive to give the current crop of illegal immigrants inside the United States citizenship? That's insane to me. Why would that not work as an incentive program for more people to infiltrate illegally?
Okay, just so I can clarify. So obviously, the people who are coming here right now illegally, right? The incentive is already there for them because their life, clearly they've chosen to live illegally in America when they could have lived legally wherever they came from. So I don't think the incentive is the problem here, and that's not why would it matter? It's already incentivized that people illegally come to the U.S. That's why they do it.
So
but once they're there, it's a question of
we
what is
shouldn't
the
be
best
offering incentives, right, for people to illegally immigrate to the
the
U.S.
incentive is America's existence. That the country of America is better, even if you're living in it as an illegal, than the situation that they came from. So how are you going to change that?
First of all, it's not always better than the situation that you came from. 1/3 of Guatemala is inside of the continental United States now. Most of them, by the way, legally, not illegally.
Okay.
The living conditions that are inside Guatemala, it's true, they're not nearly as good as that of the United States, but they were able to immigrate here in a legal fashion, pouring out literally 1/3 of the nation into this country in a legal manner. Now, it was small enough that you can absorb small amounts of populations like that, and while maintaining the social cohesion of your domestic population. But you can't be bringing in millions of illegal immigrants plus 1 million or to the tune of 1.5 million legal immigrants per year. We don't have the infrastructure even to support
America is importing 1.5 million legal immigrants. That's not the number I saw.
Legal immigrants per year since 1990. In 1990, the population was roughly 250 to 270 million. Right now, it's 330 million. This is mostly due to rampant immigration.
Okay.
And let me give you an example logically of how you will know that that's true. The United States birth rate is not at replacement levels, and yet it was at 250 million people 30 years ago. Now it's at 330 million people. So if we're not replicating, where are they coming from, Keem?
Wait, sorry. You're talking about the population of America increasing, right? Are you against the population of America increasing?
No, the population of America's increase is not due to the domestic population increasing via birth rates. Our birth rates are dropping like a rock. No, it's not.
Wait, 1 sec. Sorry. So the birth rates are dropping
levels
now. Yes, now.
Period. But we have been since post 1960.
Okay, that's when the baby boom. I haven't seen that stat. Okay, I know it is now. I know it is now.
Let me explain it. Okay, so in the 1960s, a book came out called The Population Bomb. The Population Bomb predicted that when the population massively increased inside the Western and Eastern lands, that what would happen was there would be mass starvation. The opposite, in fact, happened. And when the population boomed, we now have more of a food supply than we've ever had in the existence of all of humanity due to the additional labor. the prediction was wrong. But what it did was it caused a massive panic inside the domestic United States, in South America, and in Eastern nations, and they began to rapidly decrease the population via propaganda. Every place on planet Earth, almost right now, with the exception of Africa, is under replacement levels. The only Western nation that's not, to my knowledge, is Israel. What you would consider a Western nation.
Okay, so again, all of these would suggest that you'd need immigrants to replace. Like,
okay,
I assume you don't want a shrinking population.
You've got a big problem with that, though, which is that your immigrant population is also getting below replacement levels. So how are you going to continuously replace your domestic?
Then the Earth's population will level off. Like,
you need to listen very closely to what I'm saying. We right now have a massive surplus of food production due to the massive increase in population from the 60s.
Do you think that that's why we have a surplus of food?
Yes. If you have
we have I think we have a surplus of food because people love to have stocked up grocery stores with 20 different kinds of cereal.
Well, where's the 40 fucking food coming from, Keem? It's being grown by human beings, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
of course. So,
but you said that the overproduction of food is due to birth rates. I'm just saying the overproduction
is due to population increase.
It's due to the fact that people like to consume and they like to have options. And
it's due to the fact that there's an increased amount of labor so that you can have mass production of food worldwide. It's the number one export of the United States is food.
Okay, and I'm confused what the point is here, I guess.
My point is that you would need to raise the domestic population of the United States. If you do not do this and simply say, well, we'll just replace the domestic population with immigrants, what do you do when the immigrant population gets below replacement level as well? You're putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. Mexico, for instance.
What do you suggest?
I'm telling you. Mexico, for instance, is at 2.10. This is still below replacement rates. You need to be at 3. You got to replace yourself. You have to replace your spouse. And you have to have one additional.
2.1 is above the replacement rate.
No, that's not replacement. It needs to be above 3 because you still have people who die young. Okay. So you have to compensate for that. You want to have at least 3 children per woman. This replaces the husband, this replaces the woman, and
I don't think that many people are dying young. Like, the mortality rate is ridiculously low now.
The infant mortality rate is
okay,
low, but there's still youth mortality. People still do die quite a bit under the age of 50. Okay, and what I'm telling you right now is that in order to have your population flourish, and by the way, the birth rate is still dropping. So just because you say, well, right now we can replace you and I, in another 20 years, you may not be able to even do that. What happens when the United States population gets down to 0.8 and Mexico's population gets down to 1.5 in the birth rate? You can no longer sustain replacing the domestic population with immigrants. This is bad policy. Why not shift all the money that you would spend for immigrant labor and instead put that towards a domestic policy for increasing the birth rate? That makes a lot more sense.
So you think that, I guess I'm just trying to restate your position. You're saying that let's limit immigration, even though it's going to hurt the economy and stuff now, but by refunneling it towards people to encourage them to have more children, then it'll eventually like balance out.
If you have a domestic birth rate policy, you don't need to replace your domestic population with immigrants. This creates better social cohesion, better financial stability, and it does not displace the most vulnerable workforce among the United States, which is African Americans.
Okay, but there is also something to be said, the refugee thing that we mentioned before.
Okay, so let's get into refugees.
The bringing family thing over.
So let's get into refugees. I think that we should have very specific criteria for what we consider a refugee.
I think we already do.
Okay, but we don't, because Democrats want to change the criteria of what is a refugee to people who are maybe fleeing an abusive spouse. That's not a refugee. Refugees should only meet the criteria of war-torn nations.
Wait, you're telling me that there's situations where women are going to flee their country because of abusive spouse? Like they save up the money, they buy a plane ticket.
They come here illegally and apply for asylum.
No, but they got to save up the money and fly here.
No, or they can just cross the border to the south.
Okay, so you're basically these would be just specific to Mexico?
Well, no, it wouldn't be
Or-
specific. South America is a very large place, Heem.
So you're telling me that someone is going to get into a fight with their husband and go trek multiple different countries just because they wanted to get away from their spouse?
Because they want to illegally enter the United States for the luxurious welfare benefits that they would concur when they get here. There's no way to verify in a short term that you're actually fleeing an abusive spouse, but many have come here and applied specifically for asylum based
I'd
on
love to see that
abusive
because I've
based on them
seen like
fleeing-
gang violence and stuff.
So
People
what-
leave for gang
So
violence.
do you
and
think
stuff.
that refugee status should be based around starvation?
I think refugee status should be like based off of oh sorry, there's a little bit of an echo.
Sorry.
Being able to oh fuck, I lost my train of thought. Being able to prove that reasonably prove that your life was in danger. I mean, I guess you could say a spouse, but I think you could probably find better ways than to deal with the spousal situation. Mostly it's like for religious persecution or sexual orientation persecution or gang violence. If your entire city is overrun by gang violence, I would say these are valid reasons to become a refugee.
So gang violence is a valid reason to be a refugee?
Yeah, like if the entire like
So
if-
should
if, like
should people in Detroit apply for refugee
Sorry, no.
status in Europe?
so what I meant is like if you're under threat of like dying due to a gang and like you by leaving the city, it's not simply enough. Like you've got a mark on you.
Okay, got
like
it.
Getting out of the country is the only way that you can deal with it, I would say, in those situations.
So what countries do you think that if you move away from the domestic area which has the gang violence, are you marked by that country for death?
Sorry, I'm not sure what the question is. Say that again.
What country's marking you for death for moving away from gang violence inside whatever city is gang ridden inside that nation? That's bizarre.
I don't know. I don't really follow gangs closely enough to know the inner workings, but I know that they go to some pretty crazy extremes when it comes to.
Well, you would
dealing
agree with me that it would probably be inappropriate that because cities like Detroit, for instance, suffer from massive gang violence, for somebody from Detroit to apply for refugee status to the European Union because of gang violence. That would
They should
seem
be
pretty-
able to. No, they should be able to. Why not?
They should be able to apply for refugee status to the European Union.
I guess.
Because
Why not?
there's
Or
gang
Canada.
violence in
Or
Detroit?
Canada. Or
Do you
Canada.
think that they would accept them, or do you think that maybe they would want more criteria?
I don't know. I'd have to see. I'd have to see the specific situation, but I think, yeah, like these are some examples of like some cities get completely ruined by gang violence. Like why wouldn't you be able to? Why wouldn't you want to offer people an out for if through things that are not in their control?
Well, what you would do is you would encourage policy that would eliminate gang
But
violence
policy-
via
wait, one
three
sec, sorry.
criteria. The
Sorry,
first
I have to
criteria would
interrupt.
be. Go ahead.
Policy is not gonna. Policy takes time to enact. But what are you going to tell an individual person who's suffering or whose life is in danger? Wait for the Democrats to get elected and then pass, or wait for no, come on. People got to do what they can to stay alive. That's why I'm okay with it.
Just to back up, just to make sure that I get this correct, you think that it's appropriate for human beings inside of Detroit to apply to the European Union or Canada for refugee status based on the fact that inside this local demographic, there's an overage of gang violence, rather than to increase the funding for domestic policy to both combat poverty and create a situation that leads to less gang violence. You think that instead, Canada
why
should
does it have to
open
be
up
one?
their border and accept all the Detroit refugees?
Why can't it be both?
Well, because it's an insane policy. You only have so much money to throw at problems. The first thing that a refugee relocation policy would cost billions of dollars. That would be far better served applied to the actual nation, which is suffering from the gang violence inside it, including our own.
The problem is like that. While I agree that probably passing policies that can reduce gang violence is obviously something I'm for, a lot of that comes down to funding these cities and whatnot. And you obviously, I assume you hate the Democrats and whatnot, but I don't see Republicans ever trying to pass any funding for for public health care or public schooling or any of these things that actually will be able to reduce the
They've
gang
been
violence.
throwing billions of dollars at these programs for years, and they're largely ineffective. These are programs that are written by well, because these are. I'll give you a suggestion, but first, let me explain this crisis. First and foremost, these are programs that are written by lobbyists and signed off on by politicians. There's billions upon billions of dollars that are involved in public education. There's billions upon billions of dollars that are involved in welfare programs via these crony lobbying groups. That's one. But two, my largest suggestion is that the origin nation be responsible for its citizenry and not us. Why would we be responsible for gang violence that happens in Nicaragua? That's not our business. It's not our concern.
First of all, a lot of times it is because it's because of the drug war. Like a lot of this stuff comes back to the drug war.
I hear that a lot, but the thing is that why would that be our problem? If we had enforced borders, there wouldn't be drugs here.
Do you think that there's no drug checking and stuff at the border?
There is, but the thing is, when you have a wide open border with thousands of miles, it doesn't matter if you have drug checkpoints. They still smuggle it in.
Okay,
like
so then exactly, yeah, I agree. It's going to be
so then you would need
to
lock the southern border down in a major way to stop drug trafficking coming up through that border. But what you don't do is you don't go, let's give billions of dollars to the foreign government, which is in hand with the drug dealers, and then watch it trickle down, not to the poverty that causes gang violence, but trickles down into drug dealers' hands instead, via the corrupt government that you're giving billions of dollars to. That's insane.
Okay. That's why I'm saying that I would be for ending the drug war.
Okay, so
like why do you have to look? There's only two options.
You're going to end the drug war on fentanyl, man? Like you're just going to allow people to take as much fentanyl as they want?
Wait, what?
Well, I'm asking you, you're going to end the drug war. Fentanyl is a very lethal drug inside the United States.
Fentanyl is one that just started in the last 5 to 10 years.
And under your policy of ending the drug war, it would be legal, and you would have tens of thousands of domestic citizens dead from this horrifically dangerous drug. You would just end the drug war, and that would take care of it. There's a lot of dangerous fucking drugs you can't just end the war on, man.
Okay, when I say end the war, I'm specifically referring to things like marijuana, or fucking even cocaine. Like these kind of things should be controlled and regulated, and these are the sources of the major. Fentanyl is not being produced.
Marijuana is not a huge source of income for foreign drug dealers anymore. Marijuana
is
mostly
fentanyl.
legal inside.
Neither is fentanyl.
Yes, it is. The reason that foreign drug dealers have moved over to things like fentanyl is because the general controlled substance that was marijuana is no longer profitable since it's legal inside the United States. Your good fucking intentions ended up creating another massive problem. This is the problem with progressive good intentions. Good intentions legalize marijuana. Now we have a fucking fentanyl problem.
Wait, you think we have a fentanyl problem because of legalized marijuana?
Yes, I think that once you take away the ability for profit, if you think that's funny, then let me query this with a hypothetical to you.
Okay.
If you made all of your money off of selling marijuana, which was illegal in an origin nation, and then they made that marijuana legal in that origin nation, would you move over to a different drug, or would you just not make money anymore?
The question is, if someone was making money from marijuana, would they you would just go to whatever is most profitable, of course.
Right, you would just go over to a different drug, right?
Okay.
Sure. Right. So why is it laughable to say that because we've begun to legalize these less lethal drugs and profits have gone down for drug dealers from them, that they haven't moved over to different drugs like fentanyl? It would be absurd not to think so.
Well, then wouldn't it be a good way to prevent illegal drug trafficking by legalizing it?
No, we would prevent. Wait.
I live in Canada. We just legalized marijuana.
Are you going to legalize crystal meth, man?
I mean, listen, you should be able to have all this shit kind of controlled. I don't think there's a big, first of all, I don't think there's a big market for crystal meth. Okay. Like, I think the average cocaine user isn't going to be trying to do crystal meth. But yeah, all of these things should be controlled in some way.
The average cocaine user is not going to do crystal meth?
Yes.
Yeah. Why do you think this?
Because I think that there's a certain stigmatization with crystal meth that cocaine doesn't carry with it. That's why.
What about the stigmatization of fentanyl, knowing how lethal it is, and the fact that people are still taking it and dying all the time from it?
Okay, so the fentanyl thing is because it comes down to the opioid crisis. The opioid crisis has nothing to do with the drug war.
The fucker, of course it does. What are you talking? You think heroin has nothing to do with the
opioid
drug
crisis
dealers?
has to do with prescription medication.
What's heroin made out of?
Okay, I understand that prescription medications have amphetamines in them and heroin has amphetamines, but what I'm saying is
Opium.
a lot of it. Wait, you're going to tell me that the prescription medication has nothing to do with it?
Of course, prescription medication has something to do with it.
No,
However,
it has a lot to do, more than anything.
It's necessary for people to take prescription medication to manage various health crises that they have. It's not necessary for fucking anybody to take lethal doses of fentanyl, except they're trying to get fucking high.
You know why they take it? They take it because they get addicted to the opioids, and then they can't get the opioids anymore because of like.
So you want to just make everybody fucking opioids?
No,
opioid addicts or what?
Okay, so just to go back, you said that the opioid crisis, you said that the fentanyl crisis came from marijuana. I'm just showing you that it has nothing to do with marijuana.
What I said to you specifically was that it logically follows that if you make one profitable illegal drug now legal, that drug dealers are going to move over to whatever drug now is illegal that they can make a profit on. Some of those drugs inside the domestic United States and in most nations should be illegal and criminal because they fucking kill people at staggering rates. Just experimenting with them does that. You don't want to make fentanyl legal. You don't want to make opioids legal. You don't want to go back to fucking heroin.
Opioids are already legal.
They're controlled.
Okay, but and the reason that people are getting addicted to them is because these opioid companies, oxytocin, what the fuck is it? OxyContin, they knew that it was way more addictive than they publicly admitted, and people, millions of people got hooked on it, and now they're dealing with fentanyl. That's what actually happened. It has nothing to do with marijuana. Marijuana is still illegal in the United States. How could you say that it's because
it's legal in many states. I believe now it's most. Okay. But on top of that, right, there is no more federal enforcement at the state level. The feds just stop enforcing marijuana, period. So here's my query to you. Why is it that you think, and here, fine, you can regulate pharmaceutical companies. I'm fine with that too. There are people who legitimately have pain management issues that need opioids. You and I can agree that that's probably
of course, yeah, 100%.
So you have to control for that, right?
Yep.
And that's what they do right now is control for that, right?
No, the thing is they didn't control it properly.
I don't mean to interrupt, guys, but it seems like we're getting a little bit off topic off of the immigration point.
Let me read. I don't even need to finish my point. Okay, so going back to the border thing, right? Do you think that these drugs are coming in through the border, or are they coming in through highly
they're coming in through the border?
But they're coming in highly planned, like in trucks that are padded, like that can pass all kinds of screening and checks. These aren't just like some guys putting drugs in his trunk and driving over.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And they stuff them in tires, and they stuff cocaine under hoods, and they put them, sometimes in women's vaginas. They do all kinds of things to smuggle.
Hang on. Sorry. Okay. Do you think that women bringing drugs over in their vaginas is a significant portion of the illegal drugs coming over the border? Or is it high? How many women's vaginas would you need to bring that much drugs over?
Just the vagina. I'm saying
the asshole too.
Yes, that too. But they do bring in large quantities of drugs.
No shot. I guarantee the majority of drugs is coming over from highly well planned out systems where the trucks are like padded. They might even have like a Walmart sign on the outside of them and have goods on the inside. This shit is way harder than you think it is to control.
You think that this is Freno from Breaking Fucking Bad or what? No.
Actually, do you think that stuff is
sophisticated? It's not just sophisticated syndicates. There are street dealers, and there are people who run low-tech operations who bring massive quantities of drugs across the southern border.
I'd have to see that.
What do you mean you'd have to see it? The data is readily available for fucking everybody. Why would it not logically follow to you that massive quantities of drugs come across the southern border? Of course they do. This is
wait. Did I say? Wait, one sec. Wait, did I say that massive amounts of drugs aren't coming from?
But it's not just from syndicalism operations. That's absurd.
Of course it is. Wait, why would a drug?
Of
wait,
course
sorry, I'm so sorry.
Happen, but it's not an only thing, man.
Why would a drug dealer or drug producer who's gone through all the effort of producing the drugs in Mexico give it to some random fuck to bring it over in their Honda Civic and not go through
Can we all take a minute to laugh at this comment? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Keem.
I mean, like, I guess if you're a producer in Mexico, why would you risk putting it in a woman's vagina instead of going through like a highly technical method of bringing it over?
You can't always use sophisticated methodology to move product that's illegal across borders. Huh?
At bulk?
Even at bulk. Oftentimes what they do is they'll plant them inside of tires, things like this. Border Patrol are actually trained to look for these types of things, including so one of the big problems with your thesis here is you think that syndicalism creates massive drug cartels that then use Walmart trucks, like in Breaking Fucking Bad, to stuff them full of drugs and drive them across the border.
But some.
Yeah. And so all of them are using what? Roadways. They have to use roadways to get in that way. Roadways have checkpoints, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think they do at checkpoints?
I don't know. They're they're
called checkpoints because they fucking check, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, so it's pretty easy to open up the back of a fucking truck and check inside it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so it makes a lot more sense that you would be bringing drugs in, not on main roads and through checkpoints, right?
No, it doesn't.
No,
because because that's how. Wait, one sec. Do you think that every single truck? Sorry, it's a bit of an echo again.
I'm sorry.
Do you think it's okay? Do you think that every single truck that comes across the border, they're going thoroughly checking every fucking inside, outside, top, bottom? No, they're not. They open it, they take a look. If it looks okay, unless there's something suspicious, they'll let it through. Imagine how inefficient a system it would be if every single truck that crossed the border, they had to do an insane amount of like, we need to take the tires off, take a look under the engine, like deconstruct the entire truck and then put it back together. Like,
so let's logically see if this follows in Keem's brain.
Let's do it.
So let's assume that it's a Breaking Bad situation and they're like bringing them up in trucks that store chicken fat or whatever.
Sure.
Okay. The first time a Border Patrol agent makes a big score on one of those trucks, what's the first fucking thing that they're going to start checking from now on?
That company or that part of the truck or whatever.
Trucks that look like that, et cetera,
but again,
et cetera,
but they're not going to do it to every truck because it takes too long.
No, they will do it to every truck. The Border Patrol,
why aren't they doing it?
Even going between state lines, they'll stop your car, and if it even moderately looks suspicious, they'll say, go over to the side of the road. They'll search the vehicle. You've given up all of your rights going in and out of the continental United States. The Border Patrol's job is to literally do that. And yes, you can bribe Border Patrol. That's true. Okay, that does happen. But the syndicalism operations that you're talking about on this broad scale where they're just bringing up Walmart trucks full of fucking drugs doesn't even make sense on its face. The second you found that shit, what would happen?
I guess
quick thing. We're getting off of immigration again. We've gone pretty far from
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I guess okay, sure. So what is your take on legal immigration?
Okay, so moving into legal immigration, I think that the best thing that we should do is we should use a sectored methodology. So what we should do is look at the job sectors that require workers, and then we should look specifically within our immigration platform in order to bring in the workers that are necessary to fill those jobs on a work visa, that those workers should be tracked, and that there's absolutely no reason to give them citizenship unless they apply for it legally, and they should not be fast-tracked. They should be in the same line as anybody else. They're already getting the massive benefit of being paid here on a worker program. And then their country of origin benefits massively through remittances.
So basically that's the current system, right?
No, it's not.
What's besides the family migration? It's the current
family migration.
No, I'm saying besides that. That's besides that, right?
Okay, but you can't just say besides that.
No, but I'm saying, are you agreeing that besides that, that's basically what the current
No, it's still not. We still don't look at it through a sectored lens. We bring in
there's
no. We bring in right now. The reason you can't, this is why I'm saying you can't ignore the family preference, because right now the amount of immigrants that we generally take in is mostly from south of the border. Okay. This is based on family ties. Most of them are unskilled. We're bringing in far more unskilled labor than we are skilled labor. What you should do instead is do it on a sectored scale.
You think you're bringing in far more unskilled labor than skilled labor right
Far more. Not even close.
Okay. I have to see that. Do you have
the only way that progressives can ever justify that is by saying, but construction's a skill. But the people who are coming in to work construction are doing things like concrete laying and mostly labor intensive work. They're not doing what you would consider skilled labor, which is following outlets, doing heavy electrical work, design engineering, things like that is skilled labor. Unskilled labor is picking up boards and moving them from point A to point B.
Someone's got to do it though, right?
I didn't say somebody doesn't have to do it. What I'm saying is that you don't need such an overage of unskilled labor that you end up with a surplus of it, because that's a huge drain on our social benefits domestically in the United States. We should be looking at it in a sector tier.
When you say it's a drain, why is it that every economic paper that looks at immigration always shows that they're net benefit to the
That's true, but it's sneaky.
Go ahead.
Because it talks about also the economic displacement of who?
The low skilled workers in the country,
blacks specifically. Yeah. Okay. It's just that the Voshes of the world will say, that's okay, smooth brain, because there's going to be so few.
That's a good Vosh impression.
There's going to be so few, smooth brain, of black people who are displaced that it'll be okay. They'll just get jobs over at the local Kellogg.
I thought Vosh was in the room with us.
For real, that's a good Vosh impression. I guess first of all, I don't know if saying, can you lay concrete? I can't.
They don't lay concrete; they mix the concrete. Okay. But yes, I can lay concrete. Okay. Yes,
impressive.
I can lay concrete. I can build a house. I can do
really. And none of those are skilled. None of those require skilled labor. Okay.
No, skilled labor would be draft engineering, programming, CAD reading, mill rights, tool making. That's skilled labor. Unskilled labor is I have hammer, I have nail, I hit wall. That's unskilled labor.
Wait, you think that's what they're doing? They literally some American native born persons like
what's the biggest justification for illegal immigration is for construction and for farming.
No. Excuse me. I'm sorry. What about doctors?
For illegal immigrants?
No, we're not talking about illegal immigrants.
No, I was saying for illegal immigrants, the justification is you need someone to pick the fruit, right? And you need someone to go do the construction. That's all highly unskilled labor.
There is no justification for illegal immigrants besides the fact that you guys don't want to make them legals. I don't want to have any illegal immigrants.
Wait. So I was right. And your solution to illegal immigration is to just legalize all the illegal immigrants.
I already agreed to that, right?
Well, why even have a fucking border? Why not just repatriate Mexico and make it the 51st state, Keem?
Because there's a lot. You have to because you have, like you said, social safety nets, a system, taxes.
Oh, so it has to be controlled.
Yes.
So we can't make incentives by just legalizing fucking everybody.
Wait, we already went over this.
But you just got done saying you did. You wanted to just legalize them and that'll solve the problem. We'll just make murder legal and that'll solve the problem of murder.
I already said that the incentive is there for people to come. That's why they come. Even though they're not getting legal status.
And I want to take that incentive away.
What is it? To make America shittier?
How would that be? How would that make America shittier?
No, I'm saying the only incentive to stop illegal immigrants from coming is to make America a shittier place, a shittier destination for them. Right now, the incentive is there for them to come because even though they're illegal,
it would be to create penalties, massive penalties for being found inside the country illegally. The same way that other nations have massive penalties for people who are found illegally inside of their nation. If you made a mandatory 15-year prison sentence, I guarantee you it's going to cut down massively on illegal immigration, Heem.
I don't know about that. I think people would still come.
They would still come for the 3 hots and the cot and the prison rape, huh?
I mean, they would come because it would be worth the risk. That's why.
How would it be worth the risk for a 15-year mandatory sentence, let's say?
I don't know. I'm just telling you that when people choose to leave their country, they're not doing it because like they're living some comfortable life or something. They're doing it because they're doing it out of desperation.
No, that's a false dichotomy. It is true that some may be doing it out of desperation, but some might be doing it like they're leaving a job. I don't leave one job to go for another higher paying job out of desperation.
Can I ask you, what would you say is the percentage, if you had to guess a percentage, like between desperate people that leave for illegally out of desperation versus memes?
I would say about 10% are actually desperate. Desperate.
I think that's a hilarious.
I would say it would be a 90% brokerage of people who just want to see a massive pay increase. Human motivation is not difficult to assess or ascertain. If you're going to make more money somewhere else doing the exact same thing, what are you going to do, Keem?
Not try. I don't know. It depends. It depends on how much. Listen, like let's say I told you you can make more money, but you have to drive 7 hours to work every single day there and back. Then you might consider, hey, no, this is too much of an inconvenience.
Okay, but let's just say that the two jobs are right next to each other. They're very close.
Well, in this case, they're not right next to each other.
They're a couple hundred miles away. Would you relocate a couple hundred?
One sec. You have to leave your country, leave your family and your connections or whatever it is that you have, your entire roots. You have to literally uproot your entire life in one country and go to another country that who knows if you speak the language or whatever. You think that that's comparable to two jobs that are side by side?
Yeah. Do you think that I wouldn't leave my country to go to the EU for a $50,000 increase?
Depends.
No, it doesn't depend. I would fucking go, man, for a $50,000 increase. The motivations don't.
It depends how comfortable you are. It depends how comfortable you are in your current situation.
The only reason you're making complexities out of this is because that's the only way in your brain you can justify the current immoral system of just allowing helter-skelter whoever to come across the southern border and infiltrate our economy, use social stolen security numbers, steal people's identities, and displace the most socioeconomic vulnerable amongst us, which would be black people. Smooth brain.
Okay, so I'm just gonna give you. I know obviously this is just a one-off example. I myself could come to the United States and make probably close to double what I make here in Canada. Well, what I will be making when I finish my degree. However, it's still a consideration for me because I'm living a pretty comfortable life here. I like living in Canada, so I don't think it's just the case that
people like living in Mexico. All of Mexico is not coming across the border. There's a lot of people who like it.
Exactly.
But
just wait, what does that tell you? So it shows you that it's out of desperation.
I want to give him a chance to get his point out.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, I'll just reiterate. My original point was that people are coming illegally because they think that there's an incentive to come to America. And that incentive, even though they're illegal, even though they don't get to take advantage of all they're running the risk of getting caught by ICE. They don't get to be fully integrated into society, whatever. That even though they know that exists, that they still do it because they're desperate. And you're making the claim that they're somehow comfortable or something. And then I said that clearly they're not, because I'm an example of someone who wouldn't just leave for money. And then you said exactly. Wait, sorry, let's finish.
No.
And then you said exactly. That's why not.
No, you're reframing the argument. Let's make this very clear. The difference between somebody making $50,000 a year and making $80,000 a year, you might be able to make these comfort comparisons. Somebody making $25,000 a year, just an increase to $35,000 a year is fucking life-changing.
So you mean they're desperate?
That's not desperation.
Oh my God.
It's just a cost of life increase. Doesn't mean that you're starving to death. Doesn't even mean that you're living poorly. It just means that it can be life-changing.
It's worth the risk. It's worth the risk.
Right. Well, everything is based around risk assessment to a person, but that doesn't mean it's desperation. That's loaded language.
Okay, but what I'm saying is you're saying you have to de-incentivize them from coming. I guess it's like there's already so many there's lack of incentive already exists. Like there's so many things that. Oh, sorry, you're muted.
What's the lack of incentive? You want to give them all citizenship.
I do, yeah, but that's currently not the system, and yet people still come.
What was proposed by Joe Biden is probably going to happen.
You think that that's going to happen?
I think that, yes, I think it's likely, just like it happened under Reagan. And now would be a real good time to get into the United States if it's going to, huh?
Dope. All right, let's go. Biden.
But wouldn't that, if you were somebody who was thinking about crossing the border and you knew that there was going to be a general amnesty that would lead to citizenship, you don't think that that would be a powerful incentive?
Again, yes, that would be. But this is a two different situations.
Well, that's the debate then. You're creating an incentive.
There's two different things here. One is, again, I'm going to say that. I think I said this 3 times. One is, how do you control people from getting in? And I'm for having that be. Listen, I'm not saying open the border and let anybody in.
Right?
The wall's not going to work.
How do you know? We never built it.
A lot of the wall was built, and it's not going to work because the majority of people who come. We already mentioned that the majority of people who come overstay their visas.
A lot of the car was built. I don't know why it doesn't drive.
Do you think that a
lot of it was built after all? Why won't the car drive? We already thought was the engine.
But we already discussed that the majority of people are coming are overstaying their visas. It's not just willy-nilly walking across. Some do, and those people would be stopped because of the wall.
There's a large, and we don't even know how many illegals, 1. And 2, yes, it's true that a lot of people overstay their visas coming into the United States. We have no idea what the offset to that is with illegal immigration, though.
What do you mean by offset?
So if we can't count how many illegals are here, we can't definitively say that most people come in.
Wouldn't that be an argument to legitimize them and like?
No, it wouldn't be because
why? You don't like to wait 1 second. Do you hate the census?
No.
So why wouldn't you want to know what's happening in your country, including these millions of people who are living there illegally? Isn't that weird?
No, it's not weird. Listen,
but you just said you want to know.
Why would a person who's living here illegally go ahead and tell the census that, Keem?
No, I'm saying currently they wouldn't, obviously, but under the thing that I'm advocating for, which is giving them a pathway to citizenship, eventually they would become citizens, and then eventually they would be able to participate in the census.
Oh yeah, I'm sure if you made them all legal, then it solves the problem of illegal immigration. Like I said, you would say that's what progressives always say.
Oh my God!
This is the bait and switch, right? Just give all illegals citizenship, and then we don't have to worry about them being illegal anymore. It's absurd on its face. You say these 3 issues are all separate issues. That's true, but can you concede at least that issues can be separate but be intertwined, meaning that both of them have to be tackled at once in order for the issue to be solved?
Yeah, but in different ways.
Okay, maybe in different ways, but I'm saying that these are intertwined issues. They both have to be attacked at the same time to solve the problem. You can't say these are separate issues. We'll just work on one at a time. Giving all of the people who are here amnesty and citizenship, how's that going to solve the illegal? How's it going to solve the immigration problem?
Okay, I'll tell you. First of all, when you say illegal immigration problem, what is the problem besides the fact that they're actually illegal and you don't have ability to understand who's who and how many of them there are?
It's immoral to give preferential treatment to people who skipped in line, Heem.
Is it though?
Yes, it is.
What if they're fucking more in need? When my parents applied for immigration,
have to prove that they're more in need of people who applied 20 years prior. Didn't your parents come in legally?
Yeah, my parents came legally, and when we applied, we had to wait 6 years to get accepted to Canada, and America didn't even respond. Australia didn't even respond in that 6 years. However, I am still saying, but it's not like it's either me or a refugee. We can both come in, and I can concede that sometimes, yes, some people's situations are far worse, and I'm perfectly okay with them skipping.
What about the situation, the moral situation of everybody inside the United States, the millions who live under the poverty line currently, that we could be moving those resources towards in order to move them out of the poverty line and increase the domestic birth rate, knowing that we're just kicking the can down the road and that we're not going to be able to just replace the domestic population with immigrants in the near future. We're talking 40, 45 years.
Okay. Like, I guess I don't know what you mean by that. Like,
I'm saying that if the birth rates from the countries that we're getting immigrants from right now fall below replacement levels, we're not going to be able to just replace the domestic population anymore with immigrants. Ian.
Sure you could. Why not?
Because they can't fucking replicate. That's why.
If those countries are okay with their people leaving, then they'll let them leave. Who cares?
Oh,
What do you mean?
There's not enough of them to leave, is what I'm saying, man. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Do you think that this is like there's literally billions of people that live in the world? Why do you think that this
and
is
within a few, and this is the problem with progressives, you can't see the fucking forest through the trees. Just because there's billions of people who live in the world right now, what are the projections in 45 years? The projection in 45 years, China is going to lose 500,000 people out of 1 billion.
500,000. What's wrong with
500,000 going to be gone off the face of the planet because their birth rate is diminishing at such a rate that within 45 years, 500,000 people in China will disappear off the face of the planet.
500,000 is literally nothing compared to their population.
They have 1 billion. That's half. What do you mean it's nothing?
500,000 is not half of 1 billion.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 500 million.
Okay. That's totally different.
Yeah, 500 million. I'm sorry. I misspoke. It's 500 million.
Okay. So you're saying that China's projected to drop half of their population
with their domestic population of 500 million. Sorry, it wasn't 1,000. I misspoke. Okay. Yes. Do you want the study for that?
Yeah, I'd like to see that, I guess.
Their population.
If you have it. We're echoing.
Yeah, sorry. Go.
Okay. So anyways, I wanted to say, so then in that case, then the immigration problem will go away. It'll level off at some point.
That's the stupidest fucking thing that I ever heard.
If there's not enough people, then it'll level off. Why is that?
Because right now the policy is to replace listen to me. If you level off the immigration policy, fine. You might have solved one problem, but you still have not solved the problem of your domestic population not having enough babies to replicate themselves. Do you understand that?
Sure.
Okay. Yes. So just saying, well, what'll happen is eventually there won't be enough people for one demographic to move into another demographic. That's true, but it's really kind of just kicking the can down the fucking road.
And what is the can?
What's that?
What's the can?
The birth rate crisis, massive birth rate crisis.
Okay. I guess like if the population levels off naturally because people don't want to have kids and people don't want to immigrate, then if people don't have kids and people can't immigrate or don't want to immigrate, then what do you want me to do? We can't do anything.
What I want you to do is utilize the resources that you're spending on mass migration to the United States to replace the domestic population on replacing the fucking domestic population now.
Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. So you're telling me that immigration is a net loss right now? Economically? So when you're saying spend
Stop. You're getting way off my fucking point.
Okay, say it again.
Let's try this so that you understand completely what I'm saying to you. What I'm saying to you is that right now the policy is to bring in domestic immigrants to replace domestic citizens because of the falling birth rate.
When you say domestic immigrants, what do you mean?
Domestic people inside the United States, immigrants or non, doesn't matter.
Whatever the population. You misspoke, I think. You misspoke.
Okay, so maybe, but what I'm saying to you is that the domestic population's being basically subsidized by an immigrant population. We have falling birth rates across the board, regardless of race. Doesn't matter what race.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of the economy does run on immigrants currently. Yeah, but you just said that we should stop wasting the resources that we're spending on the immigrants.
No, we need the domestic population to be drastically increased.
Okay,
do you understand? The domestic population needs to increase. The birth rate needs to go up.
Okay,
because what will happen is eventually you won't even be able to replace the domestic population with immigrants because their fucking domestic populations will be too low too.
Okay, but you just said that we should take the resources we're putting into immigration to funnel it towards domestic encouraging of having children. Yes.
Yes.
That's what you said. And what I said is that doesn't work because immigrants are actually a net benefit to the economy. So how are you?
Why are they a net benefit?
Because they're producing. They're
producing. So if we had an increase in domestic population, what would we need them to come in and produce for him?
Sorry, I just got a sub. 1 second. Say it again. Oh, yeah. Go
ahead. Why would we need to bring them in to produce if our domestic population was large enough to produce for ourselves?
You wouldn't, obviously.
Right, you wouldn't.
But what I'm saying is you're making it out like there's so much money that's going into this toilet of immigration right now.
Yes, that's right.
But it's not a toilet because it's actually producing.
It's
That's what I'm
producing.
saying.
It's producing.
It's
only a
overproducing
benefit
what
in
it costs.
It's producing a benefit in GDP. That's true.
Yeah.
But that is not how you judge the health of a nation. One, two. The big problem that you have is, so what? There's more at stake than just fucking money here. We're talking about long-term extermination. Right here, there in the private chat.
What do you mean by extermination?
I'm telling you, right there in the private chat, I just linked it to you. China's population could have, within the next 45 years, according to a new study, half, 500 billion people. Look at the domestic birth rate in the United States right now. Superbly low. In Mexico, it's dropping, and all of the South American nations, it's dropping. You're not going to just be able to replace the domestic population soon with immigrants to get that big, massive GDP number. So why wouldn't you be filtering that cash from taking care of everybody on the fucking planet and not filter it towards incentivizing the domestic population to drastically increase so that you don't have to rely on immigrant labor?
When you say cash taking care of everyone on the entire planet, what do you mean by that? First
generation immigrants are a net drain. It's only by the second or third generation. Yes, they are.
Whoa, the immigrants now that they're letting in are actually right away. Hang on, I got.
You mean legal immigrants? We're talking about. There's illegal immigrants too. You realize this, right?
How would you know if you don't know the numbers?
How would I know that there's illegal? You can still make.
No, I'm saying.
Team.
Okay, but okay. What I'm saying is, why not just make? First of all, we're having two different conversations. We were talking about legal immigration.
They're intertwined.
Legal immigration and illegal immigration?
Yes, they're very much intertwined, man.
Okay.
How are they not?
I guess because they're two separate things that should be treated. You're trying to paint with such a broad brush, I feel like.
No, I'm taking
right now
things that are relative to each other. We're talking about immigration policy. Would that include illegal immigration?
Okay. Immigration policy, I guess. Yeah, it would. But,
yeah, it would.
But why not look at why are you looking at such a broad scope? Why not zoom in a little bit more?
I'm zooming in. I'm giving you the most viable solution that's possible. The most viable solution to the immigration crisis inside the continental United States would be to take all resources that we possibly could in order to bolster the domestic population so that we were no longer reliant on an immigrant population coming in to subsidize our birth rate. And that's what's going on.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Okay. Let's say that you were able to subsidize it, okay, and we cut off immigration right now, and so on and so forth, and then we incentivize domestic Americans to have children, and so on and so forth. I don't know what that incentivization is. We can talk about that after, but let's say that when you incentivize, the majority of the birth rate amongst, let's say, Black people is the one that actually sees the biggest increase, and slowly over time, America just becomes a Black majority.
I don't care.
Country. You don't care about that? Okay.
No, I don't.
Or care. Mexican or Hispanic majority.
Yeah, I don't care about that either.
Okay, so you just only care about the fact that they're born.
I care that the domestic population drastically increase. Now, to be fair,
but the domestic population is made up of immigrants, so like their kids, obviously.
What I'm saying is, here's the thing.
Wait. So what I'm saying is, when you
I'm a United States citizen, right, and claim immigrant status, you're not an immigrant anymore. You're just a citizen.
Okay, hang on. I mean, I'm a citizen in Canada, I still immigrated here. I'm sure a lot of people.
Yeah, I get it, but I mean, are you Canadian?
I'm Iranian Canadian. Yeah.
So Canadian.
I'm both. What do you mean?
I go dual citizenship?
Yeah.
Well, then you are the exception. But what I'm saying is that people who don't hold dual citizenship, they only have one ethnicity, which is their nationality.
Let's say an immigrant comes and is like, listen, I promise you, if you let me into this country, I will renounce my citizenship to the original country I'm from, and I will become American on this day forward, and my kids will be born in America.
Yeah, that would be great, but it has nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
It does.
How?
What do you mean? Because what I'm trying to get at
is I'm not saying origin nation is the problem. What I'm saying is that the domestic population needs to drastically increase in order for us to not become dependent on immigrants coming into the United States to subsidize our population decrease. And here's why that's a good idea. because you're not going to be able to do that indefinitely due to global falling birth rates. So you want to get on top of it now. The best thing that you can do is utilize resources to do that.
Okay, so so what I'm trying to get at basically is like, it's weird how like, let's say you stop immigration today, okay? Now there are some people that are American citizens.
I'm not advocating to stop immigration today, but what I'm advocating for is a sectored immigration policy that's based specifically on skills and work visas so that we can get the work done, but you don't have to naturalize them. You can allow in X amount that can be culturally integrated without creating social cohesion problems. This is what I advocate for.
If someone comes and works there, for like 10 years, then they still have no right to live in America afterward?
No, what right would they have? You have no such right.
You
have no such right in Japan. Japan brings in 500,000 workers.
I don't care about Japan. I will criticize every country.
What's their moral obligation? What's their moral obligation?
Why? I'm not talking about moral obligation.
Okay, so if there's no moral obligation, why do we have?
Okay, I'll even give you a moral obligation. Do you think that after 10 years of living somewhere that you don't consider that place home?
You might, but there's no moral obligation for the citizenry there to give you citizenship. You've already been compensated.
You're okay with kicking people out of their homes. That's not immoral?
Okay, do you know what right to work is?
Go ahead and tell me.
Okay, right to work means that you can eliminate the contract with your employer anytime you want to, and your employer can eliminate the contract with you anytime they want to at a job.
Okay.
Right? What is the moral imperative that the employer somehow make me a citizen of the company?
The citizen of the company?
Yeah. Well,
there's no company citizenship.
Right. So this is what I'm saying. They're already being compensated for coming in and working at a company. Why is there a moral obligation to give them citizenship? That's bizarre. It makes no sense.
You're not getting citizenship from the... Go ahead, Stardust.
Sorry. There's a super chat. It says, would you be in favor... This is from GM. Would you be in favor of UBG, Universal Basic Girlfriends, to increase the domestic birth rate?
Only if you're suave enough to get one, GM. But, that's the thing. It's like, you got to be able to get one. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I guess
I'll pull that one up. I didn't see it, Stardust. I was engaged with Keem. Would you be in favor of UBG, Universal Basic Girlfriends? No, I'm for Universal Basic Wives. Honestly,
how would you increase the the birth rate? I guess
the domestic birth rates. It's complex, and I don't think that that's the subject for the debate. But let's just assume for a second that it could be increased. If it could be increased necessarily, it would make it the best idea to increase it, rather than rely completely and totally on immigrants coming in. Right?
I mean, it depends. Sorry, I have to pause you. It depends, because I can give you a way to make it guaranteed that you'll increase your birth rate. You make it forced. Every woman is forced to have 3 babies. That's a way you can do it. But I don't think that I would advocate for that. I would still say immigration.
Let's assume whatever the policy is an incentive-based policy, not a force-based one. How about that?
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, you can see that there are ways that.
Okay, well, I'm not for violently putting a gun to a woman's head and making them have children. That's not really what we're talking about.
Okay, I'm just pointing. Yeah.
How are you? What kind of incentive do you think you could provide that would be good enough to truly incentivize people to have a child, right, and bring up, because that is 18 years at least of.
18 years is not that long of a time. People constantly point to an 18-year mark for cross-generation like that's some long period of time. It's really not, right? You can probably remember what you were doing 18 years. It's not that long of a time. That's one. Yeah. But two, it's not that long of a time. It's a drop in the hat, right?
But you need to have 3 of them as well.
Well, women on average.
Yeah, like the average. Yeah.
But here's the thing. Right?
Wait, why not make all of them have it, I guess? Incentivize all of them.
You would incentivize all of them. Here's how you could do that. You could do that with things like, if you're married and you have 3 children, you no longer pay income tax. That would be a fantastic policy. That would strive for the middle class. That would really make the middle class boom. We'd probably see a massive birth boom. that would actually help make the lower class boom.
Can I
as
ask
well.
you a question? Let's say that does happen, right?
Yeah.
But then your bridges start falling apart.
Why would your bridges start falling apart?
Because you're not bringing in enough tax
You are.
revenue.
You're not exempting all tax. You're only digging into the income tax.
You think income tax is not a big deal? I guess
it is a big deal. But the thing is that if you were going to increase,
because listen, if you tell me that you
will, there's an income tax increase, it's often targeted towards the wealthiest Americans, but yet somehow the middle class end up paying the most in burden in taxation, and never actually seems to get to the upper class, does it? This is a massive problem. And when you're talking about inequality, right, and you want these stupid things like UBI, how about instead of giving them a UBI, you just cut their fucking income tax by 20%, and then they still get the same $1,500 a month.
There's already tax incentives though, right?
Yeah, but the tax incentives are very low. You're talking about $3,200 per year per child. And if you're in the middle class and you're making, let's say, $75,000 or $80,000 a year, you might have to put more into the system than you're getting out, and all that becomes is a subsidy. So the thing is that exempting the middle class and the lower class from taxes, if they have 3 children, you're going to see a massive birth increase. And you can tax the fucking, you know what you can do? You can tax the corporations and the fucking upper class and actually enforce it. That would probably be helpful, wouldn't it?
I mean, listen, we can get into a whole thing about why corporate taxation is so difficult, because fucking they move money around, they reinvest, they don't claim profits. That's why income tax is such an easier thing to actually get from people than
well, because you just take it direct from the employer. But let me tell you, you would still have sales tax, you would still have resale tax, you'd still have capital gains tax, you'd still have all kinds of taxes to keep the bridges going, including the gas tax, which is what your road is paid with. You still have a property tax, which is what your schools are paid with, right? The only thing you would have to maybe reduce would be military and social welfare spending, okay? And the middle class bears the brunt of the burden for all of that via the income tax. It's fucking absurd. And if you were to exempt it, you would see a massive birth rate boom. And who cares if it's an 18-year investment? That's nothing.
But it also has to replace the tax incentive, or the incentive you give them also has to replace the mother's wages for that period of time as well, right?
Okay. Do you realize how much in taxation you pay if you're making like $75,000, $80,000 a year? You're paying about 40%.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Okay, about 40%. Now, do you think that if you gave a family a 40% increase to the breadwinner, that would not eliminate the need for the spouse to have a job? Because that sounds kind of absurd on its face to me.
Well, it'd have to be 50%, literally, to bring
no, that's assuming that wages are
they
equal,
make the same.
And they're not. Okay. They're not equal. Heads of households always make more money. Now, sometimes that's women, but most often it is men.
And yeah, go ahead, Stardust. I think
yes. Yeah. So we did get kind of off of immigration again, but I do want to give him like 20 seconds to maybe respond and then bring it back to immigration.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I don't know. I've seen some places have tried to incentivize having births, besides like actually forcing the women by penalty, or I can't really see how. I don't know. It seems to me that like as time has gone on, it's not that women. It just seems like women don't want to have children. Like they don't want to be a baby factory. They actually enjoy their autonomy. They enjoy getting an education and so on and so forth. And like I don't know. I feel like that's the reason why. And how are you going to disincentivize getting an education? Or
what baby factory is pretty slanderous to say that a woman having multiple children and following the natural maternal instincts that they've had since the dawn of time, along with men, which is to impregnate them, is somehow them being a baby factory. That to me just sounds like it's antinatalist, rhetorical nonsense. You're a baby factory. They're not fucking baby factories. They're having children, for God's sakes, man.
Yeah,
that's
but wait,
a baby factory.
Okay, they're having children, but they're also having it at an age where, for example, a lot of them want to go to university or start a career. It just seems that
you mean a healthy age?
Well, yeah,
where you're the most healthy.
Yes,
a woman to have
in
children.
That age,
yeah.
Unfortunately, in that age where you are the most primed to have a child, women are choosing to go get a career and have, because they want to be independent and they want to they don't want to feel like they're the lesser between them and themselves and a man. They want that. It seems to be the choice that they're making. I don't know.
No,
Stardust. What do you think? Like, you're the woman here.
I'm sorry. I don't know that I can really comment on this because I'm the moderator, but I do have a lot of questions. So
we do have another debate I have to get to at 9
let's do
o'clock.
questions.
We're pushing 8:30. If we can move into closing and questions, that'd be
yeah. Why don't you guys give your closing? I have some questions. I know Chat has some questions too. So
okay. Did you want me to go first, Keem?
Sure, you go first.
Okay, so in closing, we've seen that my hypothesis about the progressive mindset of illegal immigration wouldn't be a problem if we just made them all legal is completely accurate. It works every single time that it's tried with progressives because this is truly what they believe. It's insane. Instead of having a realistic economic-based policy for immigration, like many other countries do, including Japan, where you can bring in the labor force that you need while you're trying to incentivize your domestic population to increase, they prefer instead to have mass migration, destroy social cohesion, and on top of destroying social cohesion, they also displace the most vulnerable amongst us, which are Black workers and people in the lower socioeconomic scale. It's absurd on its face. It's a practice that needs to be stopped for some type of sound immigration policy where we can bring people in to do work if we need people in to do work. We can give them citizenship should we need to. But the most important thing that we need to do is incentivize the domestic birth rate so that we do not have to rely 100% on immigrants coming in to replace the population when soon their population will be so low they can't do that themselves.
Okay. So for my closing, listen, I'm very pro-immigration. I don't think we didn't even get to talk about any of the cultural or demographic stuff, but it is what it is. Just like as a quick thing, like when it comes to legal immigration, it's already very restricted. There's a chart here that shows you legal pathways to come to the United States. And it says, like, one is like, do you have family? If not, do you have a job offer? If not, do you have $500,000 or $1 million to invest? If not, dead end, you're not eligible. So I don't know. It seems like there's already a lot of controls in the system. In the year 1900, the immigration rate was at 13.8%, and now it's at 18%. So, overall, in the last, it's not even at 18%. It's at just a little bit above 13.5% now, and it's projected to be up to 18% by 2060. So we're back in the same place that we were in the year 1900. And then furthermore, immigrants participate in the labor force more than the average native-born citizen. At least here in Canada, it's 71% to 65%. And most of the ones that are being let in now are all very highly educated. And then when it comes to illegal immigration, we spent a lot of time on that. Illegal immigration is a weird one. I think that most people are leaving their country and uprooting their lives because they have out of desperation. You can call it not desperation, you can call it financial, whatever. But I think that, like, in order to actually, it's not like the same as quitting your job in one city to get another job in that same city, or even in another city. It's like much more severe than that. And then when it comes to what happens when they arrive, I think that they should be made into natural. They should have a pathway to naturalization, at least, whether that's like, hey, listen, you have to show that you didn't commit any crime, or even, I'll even go a step further. You have to do community service, let's say, or go help at soup kitchens for X amount of hours, or some sort of public service like that, work at a library or something. And definitely, because, like, in my opinion, having a proper census is very important, and being able to know exactly who's in your country and what kind of makeup it has is very important. Otherwise, there's going to be just a lot of tension, I guess, between these groups of people.
Okay, you want to do Q&A, Stardust?
Yeah. Let me see if I can pull up the. Should come up through top chat, right? If anybody has questions. Chat, if you have questions, please feel free to ask them. I'll keep the chat open. I do have a question. What do you do with legitimate refugees that are in country with indeterminate status?
Is that for me or for? I think that's for him.
What was the question?
Sorry. What would you do with legitimate refugees that are in country with indeterminate status?
If they're legitimate refugees, I think that it's appropriate to, if they're from foreign nations that are across the sea, that we have a designated point to hold them in while they're being processed. If they're from south of the border, I think they should be placed on the southern side at the expense of their origin nation, not to the expense of the United States. However, we do have a heart here. We are welcoming of refugees, but they have to be processed correctly so we know who's coming in and who's coming out.
Okay. Heem, did you want to respond to that, or you don't really?
I think I don't know. I think the question was for him mostly.
Okay, all right. Crucible Clips asks, what's the ideal number of immigrants per year, percentage of total population?
It should not exceed anywhere close to 0.5%. It should only be 0.5% that is allowed in. That way we can build the infrastructure in order to integrate immigrants into the culture as it stands right now. It should never be more than that, ever. Optimally, it would be somewhere around, I don't know, maybe 50,000 to 75,000 per year. There's no reason to have mass migration into a nation without having programs that are in place in order to culturally assimilate immigrants into the current nation. And you cannot do that when you bring in 1 million people per year.
I just want to give you a chance to respond. Yeah.
12.
12. Okay. All right. So one question that I saw somebody who's an environmentalist asked why they should care about population degrowth because it's good for the environment.
Well, listen, by the way, the other thing is we didn't even get to touch on this. Because of climate change, you're going to be getting a whole lot more refugees. So the best way to deal with that, well, I mean, maybe not America, but Europe and so on and so forth.
First-year immigrants create more of a carbon footprint, just so you know.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, some places in the world will be uninhabitable, and therefore those people are going to be on the move. They're not going to just stay there and die.
Dude, we've been hearing this fucking bullshit for 50 fucking years, dude. There's no fucking ice age coming. Nobody's been ice aged out of their fucking countries. Nobody's getting burned out of their countries, man.
I mean, listen, if you look, there it is though. Like if you look, for example, I know because I'm a big fucking fan of Banff, Canada. In Banff, they have glaciers, and the glaciers have been getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller year by year, and you can see it from pictures, like in the exact same spot year after year. So I mean,
well, when their country of origin becomes uninhabitable, I guess we can burn that bridge when we get there. But right now, that's not what's fucking happening. They're not coming here.
No, right now they're not. I agree. No, I agree. I agree right now. I agree right now. I'm just saying it's good to at least start thinking about these kind of things. I think
sure. And you know what? I actually have a solution for that called nuclear energy. I think it's a great solution.
I agree.
That will absolutely help with the progressive climate change problem, and it'll create cheaper energy. So conservatives should back it up.
I agree, but though that's still not going to stop massive climate refugees. I don't think. But anyways.
Having the whole world on nuclear energy wouldn't solve. Well, I mean, what's going to solve?
If you could snap your finger today, then yes, it would.
To be fair, nuclear energy, I believe, does take a while to kind of bring into. Well,
besides that, Stardust, I would agree with you. Okay, that nuclear energy is amazing. I'm a physics major, but the thing is, like, when none of us are in power right now of the entire world, if we could snap our finger today and make all of the world's power go nuclear, then maybe, yeah, you could prevent climate refugees. But at the point when the refugees are already a thing, what is nuclear energy going to do? They're already on the move. That's what.
Okay, well, first of all, most of France runs right now on nuclear energy. Okay, almost the entire country runs on nuclear energy. You can implement nuclear energy inside the continental United States. There is no 5 years before the fucking climate becomes uncheated. That's all bullshit. And anybody who says it is fucking lying to you. We've been hearing this rhetoric. We have been hearing this fucking rhetoric since I was a little kid. Okay, it has not come to fruition. It's nonsensical on its face. I'm willing to endorse nuclear energy, though, because it creates cheap energy. If it creates cheap energy and it helps you fucking hippies not have global fucking warming, great. It's just icing on the cake for me, right?
Okay.
We both win. The hippies
agree,
don't
yeah.
have to worry about the fucking ozone layer, and I get cheap energy. Everybody wins.
I agree about nuclear energy.
So I have another question. If illegal immigrants keep prices low, why are McDonald's automated tellers not lowering prices?
Who's that for?
For I guess both of you. Why
Well, first
why
of
would the
all-
automated
first of all,
tellers
immigrant
not?
labor doesn't
Uh-huh.
keep prices low.
Uh-huh.
That's again
The
a
prices
false-
aren't going to determine
a
that. The
false
price is
dichotomy.
determined by
inflation.
the price is determined by how much people are willing to pay for it.
No, it's often determined also by inflation. And right now we're in a massive inflation cycle.
Listen,
And
I
we-
promise
and we
you,
have a
if
workforce
people
crunch.
stopped buying McDonald's burgers today, or their sales decreased, then they would lower the price. I promise.
Well, I mean, what the argument, the reason why I'm saying that the argument prior is that that immigrants have that effect on wages, right? So why would robots not have that same effect on prices, on wages? Sorry, I should have said
Oh,
wages.
I guess. Okay,
I'm
I think
stupid.
to
I'm
rephrase the
sorry.
question, I think it's like if you have a problem with illegal immigrants affecting wages, then robots are basically that, but even more.
No. Robots don't. We already know robots don't affect wages. They don't affect them negatively, at least in McDonald's, right? So
They don't
Right.
wages
Yeah.
or how much the price of the McDonald's is?
wages.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry,
And
I
why would they?
misspoke.
Why would
Yeah.
they? You always have a continual labor shortage, right? When your entire goal for your society is the mass increase of GDP, you're always going to have nothing but expansion. Robotics is not nearly as advanced as people seem to think it is. And the most that you can do is replace one or two jobs on an assembly line. And oftentimes what you end up doing is creating additional jobs with module units.
Disagree, by the way, on that. It'll be I think that you
Well, out of
that
the two of us, there's one roboticist here talking, and it's not you.
I mean, I'm a physics PhD doing machine learning. I think I know a little bit about
Yeah. What's a
automation.
solenoid, Heem?
I don't know what a solenoid
Yeah,
is.
but you fucking have a PhD and blah blah. If you don't know what a basic solenoid is, give me a break.
Okay.
Okay. Somebody in chat, John Lokes says, for BPF, which do you think will be the dominant ideology for the right in the future? Your brand of paleoconservatism or the growing camp of ethno-nats, wignats, accelerationists?
Accelerationists will lose. Accelerationists have to lose because accelerationists will not address the primary problem. The primary problem is a lowering of birth rates. Nobody is genociding white people. We're just not having fucking babies. This is the same problem that happens in the black community. They're not having children. This is a combination of both birth rates and industrialization, along with not having enough financial security for family planning. Ethno-nats, wignats, all these people will lose in the end because their message is fucking stupid and it doesn't actually address the problem they're actually pissed off about. It's insane.
Okay.
Hey, John, good to see you, bro. Shout out to John.
Shout out to John. Always with the good questions. I think somebody in my chat was having issues understanding why population degrowth was an issue. So I don't know if you wanted to elaborate on that.
The one of the major problems that happens is a threshold problem. Population doesn't work like many things do. People don't seem to understand because you think there's so many people in the world that it'll always be this way. What happens if you reach a low enough threshold is you can't recover from it. Think about the Native Americans inside the continental United States. They weren't actually genocided to death. It was disease that took out about 90% of them. They were unable to recover their birth rates and still to this day are unable to. They've become such a minority in comparison to what they started with, right? You have these threshold problems where if you decrease too much, you cannot recover from it. So you should take this problem seriously. It's a major issue. Nobody's fucking talking about it. It's an issue ahead of its time, which is why. I understand that these are new ideas that are being implemented in the ethos, but they need to really be discussed, because this is a problem we're not going to be able to come back from in just a couple of generations. And instead, everybody's fixated on bullshit that doesn't matter.
Okay. Another question that I have is, so prior to the pandemic, we already had a healthcare worker shortage, and definitely with the pandemic going on, people have been retiring early. We've also lost, we've lost some force of the healthcare workers. And one place that we heavily rely on immigrant workers is in
1/3 of nurses.
Yes, 1/3 of nurses, but also care of older people. So like geriatric care, and people who work in hospices, and aides. So I guess my question would be, how would we, with people living longer, how would we address that?
You would incentivize immigrant labor to come in under work visas, pay them lots of money like hospitals do right now in order to go into these hospital environments in order to care for the elderly. Now, that's not a long-term problem. You're going to see about 3 times the death rate, as my friend Mr. E often points out, because of the baby boom. Baby boom happened in the 60s. It was the first time that the birth rate actually increased majorly, and then it fell back down. When those people begin to die off, you're going to see about 3 times the death that you would normally see, and you'll see a much greater stabilization in the healthcare field when it comes to taking care of the elderly, right? And that time is coming soon, within the next 10 years or so. When you start to see the major boomer die off, you're going to see the scales tip, because you're going to have 3 times the amount of people that normally dying.
Okay. Somebody says that assumes that they die all at the same time.
I'm not assuming that. I'm assuming that this will happen over a 30-year span. Okay. But you should still probably see at least 2 to 3 times the death rate as an average. And that should start within the next 10 years or so.
Okay. Let me look through chat here. I'm surprised I'm not getting questions from your chat.